Amid all, here they
And
all come.
they're all coming in.
Hello, hello,
Perfect.
hello. Happy
You are
Monday.
live. Now
Man,
you probably got better weather than we do in Florida. We're raining right now.
it rained earlier today. It rained earlier today.
Yeah, we need it. We've been so dry down here. But it's weird. We're in the middle of what yeah, actually what almost going middle of the month, and we're gonna have a day of 69 degrees tomorrow night. We never get like that in Florida this time of year. Usually it's the humidity, but knock on wood, it's been good. So I'm excited. So welcome everybody. Hopefully you guys, I'm gonna let Matt. He's still getting his playing with his Wi-Fi lights. I never seen
No, we're
Wi-Fi
good.
lights.
Just want to go without them. For some reason, they're not working. So we'll I'll put some light on me as the night goes, as the sun goes down. Welcome in Facebook. How are you guys doing? How you guys doing? I'm actually going to drop a link over here on Facebook for you guys. If you guys want to join, we are live on Zoom. So hop in here, ask questions. We're here for you today. We're here to take you to the next level and to help you start seller financing, whether it's land contracts, sub twos, whatever. We are here to help you and take you to that level to because Mark, I think Mark's got some experience. Mark, how much experience do you have?
Well, Matt, I just a little bit. Actually, I think we are on. I think this week is going to be the 30-year mark when I started this business in 1995.
30
Isn't that
years.
isn't that crazy?
I'm 32, if that lets everybody know how crazy that is.
Wow, think about that. That was in 1995, in the middle of May when I started. Even though I did my first deal 5 years prior to that, but when I really got into it, doing a real estate banking, started out with that, did some loan originating for about a year and a half. Then I left and met my business partners, and we ended up having 107 loan officers working for us who became a real estate banking firm. And God, I can't even, well over 3,000 deals. Yeah, it has to be more than that. And well over $500 million of transactions throughout the years and stuff. So, and I love it. It's just one thing after another. I nowadays I don't put that whole big operation like I have a bunch of employees anymore. Just want to kind of keep it low key so I can enjoy my life a little bit more. Like my other half, she literally, I just picked her up from the airport today. She went to Amsterdam. So I was like, oof, if I didn't have to go to up north, she originally was going to go to Cape Town, but she ended up with Amsterdam instead. I'm like, so I had to go to good friends of mine's. He was like a mentor towards me this past weekend up in Ormond Beach, and he was like a mentor towards me. So learning the stock market, and he had a medical billing business where over 300 employees, and he did really well. So throughout the years, he did all the Boston hospitals. And then they do meetings or breakfast. They do the breakfast, and one of the people I sat down with, he owns 139 shopping centers. So just a lot of networking. So enjoyed it. They're a little bit older than me, so you can imagine, I've been at this 30 years, so you can just imagine how long they've been in it. So I like to surround myself with, I like to be the dumb one in the room, if you will.
That's how I am. I'm right there with you. Put me in the dumb room or the dumb person, or I'm the dumb person in the smart room. Put me in the smart room. I'll learn my way eventually.
Yeah, I mean that's how you learn. It's just putting yourself, surrounding yourself with those type of people. That's how I learn. I can't tell you how many different mentors I had throughout the years on so many different things, relationships, health, business, how to handle certain things, different, all these different strategies. I mean, I can't tell you, like when I first started out, I started out doing the typical, landlord type of thing, and then a fix and flip, and then I got into doing my first creative deals were called sandwich lease options. I did quite a few of those. About so each one of these strategies, I spent a good year or two to kind of really master throughout the years, instead of just learning them all at once. So that's one thing about this is you like so many different strategies coming at you at once, but that's why we get together and we talk about it and we work through it because, but it's once you learn all these strategies, it creates so much more value to the seller in understanding the seller's needs, and then that will determine on what kind of strategy to use. Like for example, like subject to. I would never ever pitch a subject to a seller that is not financial distress. They're gonna look at me like, "What are you crazy? Oh, keep the deed in your keep the mortgage in your name and transfer the deed over to me." They're gonna be look at you like, "Oh, you're crazy." So that's why we come up with different type of strategies. So I can't see if anybody's putting comments for some reason over on Facebook. So
No one has yet.
um,
So
okay, and I know you like to ask people where they're from.
yeah, yeah, I was going to get there. Let's see. Where's everybody from? Over here on Zoom. We are on Zoom as well. So welcome in Zoom people. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Also over on Facebook, let us know where you're tuning in from. We want to know what market you're in and see if we can help you in your market. Some people, are in a great market. Some people are in terrible markets for seller financing. Uh, Mark, what's an example of a good market?
Good market. I call it a great market where homes are sitting on the market for probably 4 to 6 months. Those are prime because sellers can't sell. So they're a lot more open to doing terms. Those are great markets. Um, Actually, every market is really good. I know you said some markets are not good, but they really are. Even when the market was hot and people were getting like 30 offers, you just shift your strategy. And I always went after tired landlords because those people that have owned the property for like 15 years, they don't want to sell the property. They don't want to get hit with that capital gains, so they're open to selling on terms. I love those type of people on that type of stuff. But in this market right now, it's just phenomenal. And I think you don't waste any time because the way our new administration in the White House, he wants to lower rates. And if they lower rates, that means the sellers are going to start moving their properties because there's over 3.8 million buyers sitting on the sidelines right now waiting for the interest rates to come down. But it's crazy because some markets, the houses are going to, but there is some markets where, they're leveling off. And that's what I'm saying. Some markets where, like, take, for example, like Southwest Florida right now in Fort Myers. I mean, they're actually coming down a little bit. And those are good because if somebody purchased a property and doesn't have a lot of equity and they have to come to the table with capital, they're open to doing more of this type of a deal because they don't want to come to the table with capital. When I say come to the table, when they go ahead and close, they have to pay off the mortgage, pay the realtor fees, pay all the closing costs. And I mean, I've had a seller one time that was going to have to stroke a check for $1,800 out of her pocket. But instead, I found out what she needed and she needed some moving money. I gave her $10,000 and I paid the closing costs. So I got into that deal for like 16K. But I went and found my end buyer, put my end buyer into that deal. He put $25,000 down. So covered me to get into the deal. And then I also cash flowed $700 a month on that deal. And that was a really good deal for me. And that was a 4-year deal. And so when it's all said and done, when it paid down, my balance on the mortgage was 252, and then I sold it to my end buyer. I actually um, sold it to my end buyer for almost a little bit more than 400. So you can see the difference in the spread in that deal. So that was a nice one, and I got into it with no money of my own money, none of my own money in that deal. So you just want to
Awesome.
make sure though. You want to make sure though, if you get in with no money down, you want reserves. So if something does happen, you can carry it. So that's why I always like that money I made. I still put 6 months reserves aside to cover if anything ever happens. So depending on the state, 3 to 6 months reserves
What type of reserves? Like how much? So you said 3 to 6 months of what?
of the monthly payments.
Of the monthly
With
payments.
of the monthly payments too, like that one was a subject too. So of the monthly payments of making sure that the seller's mortgage was going to be covered. So that's kind of one thing. A lot of times I see people don't do that. They just take the money, and that's where they do assignments. I'm like, why are you doing an assignment when you stay in the deal? You still make the same amount of money up front and you cash flow. So all you have to do is 3 or 5 of those a month, or I'm sorry, 3 to 5 of those a year, and you're going to cash flow, and then you're going to get all that back in when they pay that off on whatever term you do. If you're doing a 5 year, 7 year, 10 year, but I like 5 to 7 because I want to get my capital back out so I can redeploy it into other assets. And it usually gives enough time for my buyer to establish good payment history on the property so they can go in and treat it as a refinance. So I like to be paid off usually anywhere between 5 to 7 years because most of that's being, if you structure it the right way, most of it's being paid towards interest and very little principal. So it's just a lot more gravy going into your pocket. Plus, the house is appreciation. So usually I will sell it for whatever the as is value. I'd sell it for about 10% over. So based off of time value and money, based off the appreciation. So that's kind of one of the aspects I look at.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. So real quick, It's very quiet in here today. Well, everybody's quiet. So let us know how many properties you have done, whether it's seller financing or just buy and hold. Or if you have never done a property, just say zero. It's okay. We all got to start somewhere. Um, and there is. Let me throw this out there. Some people might be scared to ask questions in this type of forum. There is no stupid questions. There are no stupid questions anywhere out there. Everybody starts somewhere, so everybody has to learn. I ask stupid questions almost 24/7. So sometimes I forget, sometimes I just need an answer. So please do not be scared to ask questions. We are here for you.
I have a question.
What you got?
What's up, everyone? Thank you very much for this forum. It's amazing. I'm learning a lot every week. Um, I'm a I have a construction company and I'm a private investor. I'm trying to look. I had two subject to deals and one owner finance that almost was closed. The down payment was too high. I didn't close for it. And my question is this: regarding owner financing in commercial, which you mentioned before, in commercial building, multifamily, maybe plazas. How does that work usually? Because, like, as far as I'm concerned, when I try to look for those deals, you're kind of swimming with sharks. It's not the average single family home. You're dealing with business people. So, like, what's the strategy to catch one of those deals, one of owner financing on a building or on a multifamily or commercial or industrial?
Sure. Yeah, they're there all the time. You treat them. I usually teach more residential because it's easy to learn. But once you understand those
Right.
strategies, you can take them into anything like commercial, multifamily. I did 5 mobile home parks last year, did one this year. Businesses you can learn once you understand the strategies. But typically, you have to like you have to build. First of all, you got to build a relationship, and they're going to do business, and especially when they're doing seller financing, they're going to do business with you because it's like because it's a marriage, and I talk about this all the time. So when you talk to a seller, think of it like the first time when you met your spouse. You're just getting to know each other, building a rapport, and they're going to do business with you. But I always like to know why are they selling and what are they planning on doing with the capital. What I like is people that have had, I call them tired landlords. I love those type of people that they're just tired and they're sick of dealing with tenants, are sick of dealing with that and this, the roof or whatever. Hurricane, you're right here in South Florida as well. I'm right up the road in Boca Raton, but you want to find somebody that likes the passive income. They don't want to get hit with capital gains, and then also go direct to the sellers. A lot of times, if you go onto like LoopNet or any of those, they've already been kind of picked through a lot. Find for sale by owners. Just if you see something like that, reach out to different. You got to come up with different ways. Going in Facebook groups. Hey, I'm looking for a commercial building in so and so an area. Call leasing agents. They know a lot of times like, hey, I'm looking for some property. I'm looking for a leasing agent company in an area. You just got to start building a network. Keep building and building. Like landscapers, snowplow removals. You know, landscapers are great because think of all these guys have commercial landscaping companies. If you're looking for commercial, and they may know somebody looking to sell one of the properties. Um, Contractors, anybody that's out dealing in that world of working on properties or people going like janitors or any of those type of services, just build a network and have them like, hey, I'm looking for some properties, do you know anybody selling? And then just start having that conversation with the seller. Why are they selling? What are they planning on doing with that capital? Because if you know those things, then that's how you can structure deals and get into really creative seller financing deals. There's ways like I've done a mobile home park where at closing we got $141,000 back at closing because I knew how to structure that deal, and that was a commercial deal that was in Georgia. So they're out there. You just got to find them. You got to just keep turning over. And then the other thing is 70%. 70% of my deals come from follow-ups because originally you present an offer. No, I'm gonna try it. I want this. Like today we had somebody, one of my members, because we jump on at 5:30 on Mondays. She's out in Hawaii, and the seller has a hotel, beautiful hotel. He's 70 something years old. He's run it his whole entire. It came from the parents, and you know, we went through the motion, and he kept saying, what did she say? She said something about risk, something on the lines. But the bottom line, what happened was she didn't build a good enough rapport with the seller because the seller didn't know anything about her. And the reason why the seller is going to do a type of seller financing, because she didn't build enough credibility with him. She needs to build more credibility, like about like making sure that she's going to take care of the property. And at the same time, I'm interviewing my sellers to make sure they're not going to be crazy. I've had those. Where's my payment? Well, the payment's due on the first. We're only at the 20th. I still have 10 more days. That type of situation. So, and you being a GC, what kind of GC work are you doing? Do you do residential, commercial? What do you typically do?
So basically everything. I started only with roofing, and then I added like impact windows, and then HVACs. Our company is like we all the company owned and operated by veterans, like from the first to the last employee. And clients started to tell us, "Look, I would like you to do our kitchen and bathroom." Like a few years ago, told them we don't do this. They told us, "Okay, we want you to bring us up and manage them with the same work ethic you deal with our roof and our windows." And then from one thing to another, thank God, today we're building like custom homes. We build a plaza, a commercial plaza in Dania Beach. We're building a 7 townhouses in Deerfield. Everything from full remodeling to ground up, new construction, basically everything.
So let me give you an example of a deal I did one time. This
Mhm.
was in North Carolina. The seller, I don't remember how many acres. The seller wanted $1.5 million for this piece of land. Okay, it was free and clear. The seller, instead of 1.5, he ended up making 3.1 on the deal. What I did is I brought a builder in, and we end up doing a partnership with the seller, and we used the land as leverage. So we got into this deal with no money down. So what we did is we took a loan out against the land, we did the entitlement, and we would build 5 homes at a time. We ended up building 49 homes in there with 0 down. So there's so many other creative ways of doing stuff like that. If you have that capability and you have that, you just now need to kind of learn how to talk to sellers and kind of work on type of deals and use that as a leverage. Instead of going out and getting capital partners and help you to do these things, use the seller's assets as your capital partner. And that's some of the stuff that, it's great. And that's another creative way of going in and getting into some of these type of deals. Does that make sense? You can do that even on commercial, but residential, I like residential because there's always a housing need. Unless it's a good commercial that, if something happens with the economy, that it's going to be filled. I know people love commercial, like those type of buildings, but for me, I like where people need to sleep and stay and have housing. But that said, that's kind of one of the things where I've been focusing on mobile homes because the affordability factor that we've been having. So, but you have an asset there that you just got to figure out how to structure deals and be able to talk to sellers and have that to be able to help you to get into that. So you have a good step to be a lot further than a lot of people coming in because you bring that value to the table with a seller to try to structure that deal. Cool. Matt, did we lose you?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we look like we're frozen on Facebook though. That's why I ask.
No, we're good over there.
Are we? Okay. Maybe it's just my screen.
Yeah, sometimes it's just your screen. All
Okay.
right, ready for this?
Yes.
How would you write emails? I have a 9 to 5 and it's hard to call.
How would I write emails?
Yes. Dean, do you want to hop on and ask your question? Are you able
So
to unmute
Dean's
yourself?
new. I think Dean said he's new, right?
Yep, he's newer.
Yeah. So I wouldn't write emails. I would send text messages to sellers, like a short, easy one. Use Chat GTP. I use it all the time now. Like, hey, give me 10 different options to send a text message to a seller to see if they're open to selling the property. Um, that's kind of what I would do. I use it all the time. Chat GTP has just been amazing for a lot of my stuff lately. But anyways, for me, I like sending a message, hey, I'm looking for a property that I could rent for a few years and then close on it, and I'll take care of the maintenance and repairs. That's what I like. for me, because then I know if they respond back yes, then I know they're open to some type of creative seller financing strategy. That's for me. But now some people, um, like Matt, um, not this Matt, but my other Matt, he does wholesaling and does the burst strategy. So he does that. So he also changes his, hey, I'm looking for a property to purchase. Do you have anything? So he adds that, like that's another tool in his tool belt where I don't do the fix and flip model. Now, this gentleman here that was just on, I forgot his name, he does contracting work. So he might want that strategy where he can find properties at a discount that he can go in and fix and flip it. So that's a great model for him. Where me, I don't like to do the fix and flips. I'll buy property like that and sell it as a handyman special, but I don't want to go out there and deal with all that stuff because I like to create paper and create the arbitrage. That's my model, and talk to people and just keep cutting deals. Now, some people you can, but I'm giving up a lot of profit at the same time. Like somebody that does that fix and flip model, they could probably make another $50,000 to $75,000 if they had that and they can do their work themselves. But I'm okay because I can just move on to another deal and just make money up on the next deal. That's how my thought process is. But some people have that deal and they can probably squeeze and make more money out of that deal. Especially if you know how to, if you're really good at the fix and flip type of model.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. And we got Craig. I've got 6 seller financed homes, but the biggest challenge I'm having is trying to find decent funding to scale a bit more.
That's why I love seller financing, because you negotiate. So you got 6 seller financing, and that's typically what happens. Where a lot of my people that come in I work with are people like yourself, anywhere between 3 to 6 properties, husband and wife, and they're because they've always had to put 20 to 30% down, and all their assets are tied up in real estate, and that's how it happens with an investor sometimes. So what I like to do is I like to find seller financing and structure it and get as low as down as possible, trying to figure out the sellers and really negotiate, and then go out and find my tenant buyer, my end buyer, use their capital to take the deal down, and then I create that arbitrage and to create that spread in between. So that's me. And then now sometimes like multifamily, mobile home parks, I'll hold those, but the nice single family homes in nice neighborhoods, I like to find families that have small children in near good schools where they want to raise their children and they don't want to move. So then at that point, I like to just create the paper and become the bank. So I find a deal, structure the deal, add a spread, add my premium, negotiate a lower rate, upsell it like a lease option or a higher interest rate and create an arbitrage. Like I did one not too long ago where I structured it 4% with the seller, and my end buyer's 7.75%. So I got that interest rate spread. So I cash flow off of that deal. Now at that point, now I'm just holding paper. So technically, I don't own it, but I structured it in that manner. So okay,
Okay.
hopefully that helps.
Yeah. And this is site. I've got 2 townhomes bought with traditional financing. I am able to take depreciation in my tax filings. If I buy a home in seller finance, will I be able to take the depreciation in my taxes?
If the deed is still, you're controlling the deed, yes. You can even sell it ways where you can still handle it. Like you could sell it in a lease option, or you can sell an agreement for deed, a land contract, and then spell out that you're going to get the depreciation. Um, I hate to say it, but I've seen both people take it before, buyer and seller, but you spell it out in your contract so that determines on who gets a depreciation. But typically, I always want to control the deed. I always want to get the depreciation and the tax advantages. That's how I do mine. And then I said to my end buyer, now, if you're going to wrap it, like if you buy it through self financing, wrap it and create a note, then no, you won't get that depreciation. So you have to figure out what your exit strategy is. But you can structure in a way where you get the depreciation, but if you turn around and sell it as a note, then you won't get that depreciation. So what I typically do is buy it through a seller financing strategy, and then sell it through like a lease option, or like a land contract and agreement for deed. So I'm still controlling the deed. But now I've had ones where the property needed a lot of work, like say it's a handyman special. At that one, I'm gonna want to pass the depreciation on to my buyer and make it an incentive for him. So there, I do not get my depreciation, but I'm getting my cash flow. So it's a case by case on the deal, but most of the time I'm getting depreciation. I'd say about 85% of the time. That's a great question.
Yeah, that's really good.
Thank
You
you.
have a
Thank you.
follow-up question?
No, I do have multiple questions, but I want to let others to ask.
Okay, let me hop in here real quick. Just say for everybody that is looking to learn more, they might be new to seller financing, or if you're in a spot where you're stuck and you're looking to grow and you don't know where to go from here, Mark does have a training to allow you to basically be mentored by Mark and the rest of the group to go out and learn how to seller finance to get more deals. Um, we do have a free call for you to hop on. It is a call to see if it's a right fit for you. So I am sending it here. I am sending it there. Bam. So I just sent it on Facebook and on Zoom. Feel free. It's free to call, no hassle. Just hop on there, schedule a call. You'll be speaking to Reese. He's actually on the call right now, and he'll help you understand if the program is good for you. And then if it's a good fit, you'll be scheduling a call with me to see if we can get you in and get you rocking and rolling. All right. Go ahead, Sai. You can go ahead and go if you have another question. I know you just turned your camera off.
Yeah,
Ask
no,
away.
So the other questions, because I've never done anything self-financing, only in the traditional way. Though I've followed all the knowledge, rather information available in the YouTube, Facebook, but I don't know how to pick the right ones. It's every Facebook posting for self-finance. I look at that. I don't know what else I should look for, because the way I look at it is if a home can be sold in the traditional market, people would love to sell there. If they can't sell it there, that means there is some problem or there's some challenge to sell it in the regular market. Then they would come to seller finance. So how do we analyze to find out, knowingly, that there is some deficiency, but then you can still make a deal out of it? How do we find out that? I think that comes with experience, but I don't know where to start.
So again, like that's where markets like what market are you in?
I live in Northern Virginia, but I
Good.
invest only in West Virginia because that's the price range I can easily raise the money for down payments.
Good.
Something else here
I
is
get
so
it.
expensive.
Yeah,
Um,
so it I, again, there's different ways of going about it. Like I have what's called tired landlords. Do you know what I mean by a tired landlord? So people that have owned a property for 12, 15 years plus, they're a landlord. Okay. I love those guys because they know they're tired of taking care of the tenants, to dealing with the headaches, but they don't want to get hit with capital gains. So they're open to selling on terms because they like that passive income, they like that mailbox money coming in. So that's one type of person. And I can send you a link. There's what's called a deal machine, and they have a list in there you can poll and call people. That's one option. Another option, you can actually call like property managers and tell the property managers, hey, I'm looking for a property, I'm really wanting somebody that's owned a property for a period of time, they're just tired. Typically, I don't want a seller, a landlord that's owned it for 5 years or less, because they're just taking the meat off the bone, if you will, and they're taking all that. There's nothing left over, and they're trying to cash out to go into a different deal. Typically, that's what I found. But people that have owned it for a long time, they want to pass the torch on to somebody else because they've been there and they want that passive income, and they're not so greedy. And a lot of times that you can get in with no money down on some of those. Like I did 13 units with no money down on a 13 unit. Um, how that one, because I have a bunch of bird dogs, how that one came, like when I say bird dogs, like trash men, landscapers, snowplow removals, Uber drivers. I build up a system so they send me deals. Where that deal came from, that one came from a hospice nurse. So I have hospice nurses that refer me deals also. You know what hospice is?
yes.
Yep.
Uh, Someone, in the
Yep.
senior
So
care.
I get deals like that too. I just the family called me up. So you just got to keep building. The other way is just um looking at homes sitting on the market for a long period of time, or expired listings. The house just expired from a listing. Or look at a property that was originally trying to sell it and they switch it to renting. So there's a lot of different ways of going about it to try to find. They're all out there. You just got to start putting the systems and looking, and then present an offer. And again, most of the time they're going to try to sell it traditionally, like what you said. But 70% of my deals come from a follow up. 70% because they're trying to sell it traditionally. Like, and then, well, because they're carrying two mortgages. Another great area I love, love, love are military bases. People get transferred. They buy a house with the VA, and that's another great, especially in, up in that area. I in the Northern Virginia area, but they're all over. There's so many there. You just got to go out there and just start searching and finding them. For me, what I found in the Facebook groups is they're typically wholesalers, and they locked up a deal. And you can find some good deals with wholesalers, but typically they're offering way that the reason why they're getting the deal, they're giving the seller way too much down, and they're trying to tack on $10,000 to the assignment fee. It just doesn't make sense. So at that point, you can go traditional DSCR investor loan again. You're still putting 20% down. It doesn't make sense. So the best deals are going direct to sellers, but I'll work with realtors. I don't mind paying a realtor commission, but I use something like that. Then I'll go out and get my end buyer and use this buyer to capital. Like I'll sell it as a rent to own and have them put a nice chunk of money down and then use that money to take the deal down. So there's many different ways of going about that. Did I help?
Fantastic. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Do you have any more questions to piggyback off of that?
No, I'll say for this next call, but this is good. Thank you.
I've been doing this a long time, so it's kind of like second nature to me now, type of thing. It's just you get to a point where now I have so much deal flow coming in, I'm turning deals away. Because for me, some of these people, when they're doing seller financing, they're trying to make the deal work for the seller. But yes, you do need to make it work for the seller, but it also has to work for you as the investor or your end buyer, whatever you're trying to do to that deal. So if I'm doing a deal, I want to do a deal that's going to work and make sense. I don't want to go through that whole process and do a deal where it doesn't make sense. I mean, I see some deals out there where, the PITI is higher than the market rents. Why would I want to do that? Oh, the short-term rental. I want long-term rental. You never know what's going to happen with regulations. I've seen it happen too many times. Or the market gets oversaturated. So, there can be okay wholesalers, but I just be very, very selective. That's what I find is a lot more tire kickers. Can you assume a VA loan? Yes, you can. You can assume a VA loan, but you got to qualify. I don't like assuming loans because you still got to go through the qualifications, just like, but I think the VA, they keep changing it. Sometimes you have to be a veteran, but sometimes you don't have to be. So you have to check with the lender that holds that paper. But I'll buy that property through a creative seller financing without assuming it. The key to it though, when you're doing a VA loan, if you're doing it like a subject to, or you're doing an agreement for deed or one of those, you have to be careful because with a VA, they have what's your max eligibility that you can purchase. Like in Washington, D.C. is really high. I think Washington, D.C. up there, you can use your VA eligibility up to $2 million. Some areas might be 500,000 or 700,000. So let's say, for example, it's $500,000, your VA eligibility, okay? And you have a $200,000 mortgage that you've taken out. So now all you have left over is 300,000 that you can use because your max VA eligibility is 500,000. So that's one thing you got to be careful of. So so sometimes you can do it. Most of the times you have plenty of room, but you just got to be careful of that. And if you do assume it, then that relieves that borrower's eligibility, so it allows them to open it back up to 500,000. But I can't tell you the last time I went through a traditional lender to get a loan for residential. Commercial is different, in the mobile home parks and stuff like that. But it will be actually 10 years since I took this property. Was the last time where I live in now that I did a conventional loan on in 2015. So, but that was, I think, in the middle of summer. I just prefer just doing seller financing. I can close, it's negotiate a low down payment. I can negotiate a lower interest rate. Sometimes I've done zero. I always got to find out, like, to the seller, how much money do you need monthly, and then I can back the numbers in. I had a deal several years ago. where the seller, it was 61 units in Kentucky. The seller wanted $5.7 million for this multifamily, but it was really worth 4.5 million. But the seller wanted 5.7. So I told the seller, I'll get you your 5.7, but you're gonna have to do it over 7 years. So what I did is I took an amortization schedule, I backed into numbers, buying it at 4.5, and over the time, once it's all paid off, they got the 5.7. So it's, again, you just got to listen to the seller, really what they're trying to accomplish, and kind of go down that path with the numbers. So hopefully that helped.
Makes sense. Yeah, I didn't know you had to. I didn't even think about having to qualify for the VA loans.
Yeah, whenever you're assuming a loan, you have to go through the qualifications, whenever, even if it's VA, FHA. The good thing about those right now is because a lot of those have low interest rates. That's why you want to assume them. And you can see that out there. Like if you jump into Zillow, you can see that stuff, but you still got to qualify. You have to have a halfway decent good credit. There's qualifications that you have to, it's just like going through the process. You got to make good income, good credit, making sure that your debt to income ratio is there, which you want to do anyways when seller financing. You want to make sure if you're putting a buyer in a property, that's one of the biggest things I always look at is the debt to income ratio when I'm doing seller financing, put my buyer in a property. Because otherwise, you're technically a lender and you could be viewed as a predatory lender because you're structuring the deal. If you're doing it through like a seller financing, if you're putting interest rate down payment, then you're looked at as a lender. And there's certain consumer protection regulations that protect that consumer, and I'm all for that.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah. When it comes to the that predatory lending, it's something you got to be very careful of. Like, very careful of.
You absolutely. I mean, there's people don't realize it. A lot of people like, and that's kind of what's hurting the industry a little bit is these guys doing wholesaling and selling the property off and not even qualifying the end buyer. And they're like, "Oh, I'm just signing a contract. I'm out of this." Chuck, good luck. Doesn't matter how good your contract is. If you put an end buyer in that property and they can't afford it, and you're the one that went out there and you structure the deal, you're going to get pulled into that mess. And I've seen it. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten calls from people that went through a program and they're just learning how to do assignments and they're like, oh yeah, my contracts are good. They get pulled right into it. I don't know how many people know about what's called a performance deed. Do you know, have you ever heard of that before, a performance deed?
No, what's that?
So a performance deed is like if you do a structure, you create a deal like through a seller financing strategy, and let's say you don't you you do a deal with a seller and say, hey, Mr. Seller, if I don't make the payment, it's not there by the 15th or the 30th, the deed automatically transfers back to you. And I saw a deal blow up one time because these guys went and used a loan servicing company, which I always recommend using a loan servicing company. But a lot of times, most loan servicing companies, when that borrower or buyer sends in the check, they're holding that check for 2 weeks before they disperse the funds to make sure that check clears. Well, these people went and didn't realize it, and and the first payment that the borrower they put down, they put $50,000 down. They didn't put anything in reserves. I always tell people to put money in reserves. And so what happened was the buyer made his first payment was on the 5th. The second one was the 9th, and then the third one was the 18th. Well, if they're holding that for 2 weeks, and when they disperse the funds after the 18th, you're beyond 30 days. So they had a 30 days performance deed. So the seller's like, oh, I want my property back. And then, yeah, meanwhile, their buyer put 50K down. So they got money there. So the seller's like, okay, I want my property back or I'm going to end up suing you for the difference of like, they're going to sue him for 130. But then they also messed up because the investor never purchased a subject to deal. He bought it through a wholesaler, if you will. And then, her attorney, the seller's attorney, went and looked it up and saw that this investor had 7 properties in one LLC. So he was going after all those properties. I'm like, oh my God, you didn't even protect your properties correctly in the proper LLC structures. So it's just like, and I'm not an attorney, but I just know what I would do and tell people, talk to an attorney, make sure you set your assets at protection so you hold it. So it was just blown away how and they're cash flowing really well in that deal. They're cash flowing $1,300 a month. So I just told them, just give the deal to the seller and just walk away because they screwed that up totally. We
Okay,
have a question
okay.
there.
Yeah, I got two questions. One over
Okay.
on Facebook. How would you buy a $2 million property by having the loan for a down payment and closing costs?
How would you buy, I can't read it, but how would you buy a $2 million property for the down payment and closing costs?
Yeah,
Well, again, so that's kind of a vague question, but anyways, tell
very.
me if I'm just as I'm answering this, if I'm not answering the right question, just kind of plug it into the chat so I can kind of understand. So you have to negotiate with the seller, like what are they looking for down? You know, that's one of the biggest things that they're going to want to see is how much do they want down. Okay. Um, and then that one, I'm assuming you're going to probably live in that property on a $2 million home, or it's going to be like an Airbnb, but that one you're going to probably need a capital. It depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to live in it as a primary residence, then that one you're probably going to need a little bit of money. You could get with very little money down, but that's a different type of seller. What I normally do is whatever the median price range for that area is, I like to go 20% above and 20% below because you could get a $2 million property all day long, right? But what's your exit? Are you going to try to find an end buyer to put in that property? You're going to try to find a tenant. Your buyer pool is probably really small. So keep that in mind, unless you're going to live. If you could drop into that chat, if you're going to live in there or what's your exit, what's your thought on that? Because that will really help me guide me in the direction of what your question is and how to answer it, if you don't mind.
Very good. All right, let's go over to Fernando real quick while they reply. Even though it's a high interest, you're able to get a higher interest rate on a buy and hold or flip.
Yes, even though the interest rates are higher, are you able to get a higher interest rate on a buy and hold and flip? Are you referring to a lender? Or are you referring to a seller on that? I'd like to know a little bit about that, what you're referring to on that one. But typically on seller financing, it will be a little bit higher, because you're me. Well, let me back up. I negotiate really low as possible with my seller. Usually, what I ask my seller is like, what type of monthly payment are you looking for? So then I can back my numbers in. You know, it's kind of like, you ever hear those people when you walk into a dealership, right? And they're saying, "Oh, I want my monthly payment this." Well, the sales guys there love it because, all right, I'll go ahead and back. They'll play with the numbers and sell them a higher car or a lower car and just play with the numbers. So they love that. So you need to kind of understand a little bit what you're trying to accomplish there, even though the interest rate is higher or lower. Buy or hold a. For me, I don't care about the rate. For me, I look at the monthly cash flow. That's for me what I look at. On a flip, I'm okay with that. If I run my numbers, I have to run my numbers and see. So interest rates don't scare me. Now, I do got to be careful of an interest rate if I'm selling it to a buyer that's going to be living as a homestead, because then you could be seen as a predatory lender. So you got to be careful of that. You can't charge an outrageous rate on that in some states. So typically, whatever prime is plus a certain amount, like if you do like something like at a 14% interest rate to a homestead buyer, that's considered predatory lending. So in this market condition, so you got to be careful of that. But for me, I'm always looking at monthly payments when I'm structuring my deals. How much cash flow am I going to get? And then my end buyer, what they can afford. Typically, whatever the market rent is for that area, I'll go a couple $100 over, because otherwise people would be hard to put somebody in that property when they can go ahead and rent cheaper.
Awesome. All right, we got some answers over here. So for the loan aspect of things, one is to have one loan for a down payment and closing, and then the second loan for seller financing. And they were talking about a 30 unit.
Okay. So they're looking for a first and second. All right. So they're not doing seller financing, it sounds like.
Well,
Am I re
the first loan would be for a down payment and then the second would be seller financing, second loan.
So you're bringing a capital partner. That you could do that all day long. I've done those. There's nothing wrong with that. Did they say is it a primary residence or are they doing it as a business? I don't know if they said that, because that helps a little bit, because then are you paying that yourself or are you going to be running it as a business type of situation?
Right.
Okay. We'll come back to that while we go
Yep.
to Scott. I know Scott
Yep.
Brown. I have a
Okay.
Scott Brown as a buddy in California. He kills it out there. He has 71 beds in a detox center.
Wow.
$1,500, $1,500, 900 to $1,500. But so he's got 71 beds in detox and he's got 5 homes when they come out. He got offered 28 million and he turned it down.
Wow. That's
So
wild.
Scott, are you on mic? You want to ask your question? See my camera.
Yeah, I was just saying I got here late, so you might have covered that, and I hate I didn't get to spend more time with you at DME. But I was curious what your bread and butter deal is you do over and over again, and like what do you like to do?
I love buying through seller financing. Get a low down payment as possible to zero down, 5% or less, typically. And then I usually will go ahead and whatever the as is value is, I usually tack on about 10 to 12% over that and sell it on a lease option or agreement for deed, a land contract to a buyer and having them out of my name. My exit's about 5 to 7 years, and I look for a minimum of $500 a month cash flow. And I use my end buyer's capital to take the deal down. So I'm getting into my deals with no money in most cases. That's my bread and butter, and I like it. Single family homes, nice neighborhoods with good schools, and where they in a young family where they don't want to keep moving the family around, and they want the kids to grow up in that neighborhood and grow up in that community. That's the ones I like because they're good, and I like good like blue collar areas, where people work and work hard, and people that they're the type of people that will take care of their home and handy, and they'll go out there and change their own tires, that type of like community. Like does that make sense? Not like I live in Boca Raton, not in this type of community, but like Alabama area, Ohio, like those type of markets where people work good jobs at factories or whatever you want to call it, drive truck, they have a good income and they're comfortable and they have a good family. That's kind of the nice, and they're all around, the brothers, the aunts and uncles and all that, of the children, and the cousins all come and hang out. Those are my bread and butters that I really like. And lately it's been mobile home parks.
Okay, and then what would be the average price of your typical deal that you say is a sweet spot for you to like buy at?
I like anywhere between like 175 to like 275, but I will, so typically whatever the median price range is for that area, I like to go 20% above and 20% below. So let's say, for example, it's $250,000 in median price range. So the max for me, I'll go 300, and the low, I'll go 200. Now, I will look at deals below 200. It could be a house that just needs like a lot of work into it, but I don't want to make sure it's not in a war zone. I So the reason why is that 20% above and below, that's where your main buyer pool is. It's going to be easy to move that property. Because let's say, for example, the median price range for that area is 250,000, right? And the seller, oh, I got this deal that's worth 475, and they're open all day long to seller financing, but it's going to be so hard to be able to find that buyer to put in that property because it's a different type. So that's my sweet spots on that type of stuff. And I like just creating the notes on that. We talked about that, just creating the paper.
Awesome.
Cool. It's a good time at the event.
Yeah, I didn't know who I didn't know, and so I didn't realize I got there late, and I didn't realize how successful you were. I would have been like a hobo on a ham sandwich hanging out with you.
It's all good. It was a good time. I'll probably be there next year. Where are you located? What part of the country again?
I'm Mesa, Arizona.
Okay. That's a hot market out there. I mean, well, it was a hot market. A lot of things are sitting, but you're saturated with the sub-2 community out there.
Right. And I guess the thing that I would say is that stuff just doesn't cash flow here, meaning, and I mean, so anyway, so I like the market you like. I wanted to see if you had any like in this market, like what are you focused on? And I don't want to dominate the conversation, so I was just
Sure. No, it's
curious
good.
where you.
Like that's what I'm focused on, is those type of markets where the affordability, and the hardworking people that want a home and take care of themselves and take care of their family, and they just want to enjoy their life type of situation. They take the vacations once or twice a year type of thing, go camping and that type of stuff. I like those type of people. And they can't qualify through traditional, my buyers can't qualify through traditional banks, but they make really good income for whatever they might have gone through, a divorce, credit challenges, things to that nature. And I like markets where homes are sitting right now where they can't sell, sitting for a period of time. The sellers are a lot more open to doing seller financing. You know, I
Love
like
it.
that. Cool.
Awesome.
I know we
Sai, you
got
want
some
to go
more
ahead?
questions. Go ahead.
Sai,
I'm
you want to
sorry.
go ahead and unmute yourself and ask? If I'm saying your name wrong, you can
Yeah,
please
you're
correct
right.
me.
No, you got it correctly. So this is again, I'm trying to be conscious about not asking too many questions.
Hey, that's what I'm here for.
Thank you. So when I'm asking my realtors in my area, many of them don't know about the seller financing. And I have a full-time job and I find it hard for me to find the deals. And again, same time, I'm not very convinced of taking a subscription and then really, I don't know how much I can make use of it. So how do I find some realtors in Virginia, Northern Virginia, or West Virginia, where I can go and drive and because I don't want to do remote because it becomes too unknown.
Mhm.
How do I find locally?
I like to ask the question and say seller financing. You have to kind of dumb it down a little bit. I like to ask the question, would you be willing to rent the property to us for a few years and we close on it? So you can ask a realtor, hey, I'm looking for something I can do a rent to own, and I'll go ahead and pay your 3% commission up front. Or also, I like going to rental realtors because they're used to 1 month's rent under commission. And a lot of times that people are trying to sell the property and they switch it to a rental. So that's how I usually say, hey, I'm looking for something I can rent for a few years and then close on it, and I'll take care of the maintenance and repairs. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's absolutely.
That's the best way of going about it. Just keep it simple. Don't say leases, don't say rent, lease options, don't say anything of that stuff. I had a seller one time that I said, hey, let's talk about doing a lease option, blah, blah. No, I don't want to do it. No, no, no. This was years ago. No, I don't want to do it. And then as we're talking a little bit more, and she goes, well, I would be open to a rent to own. Well, it's the same thing, but so you just want to keep it really simple, dumb it down when you're talking to them. Just like, would you be willing to rent the property to us for a few years? We close on it. But the key is motivation. When you're asking questions about the property, it sounds like wow, it sounds like a beautiful property. Why would you want to sell? And just shut up. There's your motivation that's going to come out. It sounds like a beautiful property. Why would you want to sell? So you're pulling out the motivation. I always want to know why they're selling and what are they planning on doing with that capital. Okay. Again, a lot of times it's going to be hard to ask them what they're doing with the capital. So you got to build that relationship. When it comes to seller financing, it is like a marriage. You have to build a relationship. So the first time I'm talking to them, think of it when you first went on that date with your spouse, your significant other. You're getting to know each other. You want to get to know them and you want them to get to know you. So if they feel comfortable with you, then they're going to tell you what they're planning on doing with that capital. Okay. So, and that's really, and then if you figure that out, what they're planning on doing with the capital, then you know how you can structure your down payments, and they don't need all that capital. Maybe they only need $5,000. Little things like that. Maybe they need some money to help them move. Well, I can get some moving people over to help you out. Let's kind of figure that out. So there's different things. Maybe downsizing. I've had that like in Florida. I love that. People downsizing, or even up north. So they want a smaller home and they're open to doing. They just want that monthly. What I've also noticed when it comes to seniors, when they're open to seller financing, typically if there's two spouses, they are open to it because if something happens to one spouse, they're getting that passive income, that monthly check coming in. So they look at it as another social security. Now, if it's one senior, typically then it's going to be like a wholesale cash because the children are saying, Dad, no, they want to take that money and go to Vegas. That's what I found when it comes to doing seller financing. And then the other big factors like, oh, I'm 70 years old. I'm not going to live 30 years, that type of thing. Well, what I do is I'll say, well, what I can do is when we close on it, I can have the attorney or the title company, we'll put your mortgage against the property, we'll put it into a trust. So if anything happens to you, it automatically goes to the beneficiaries of your trust, your heirs. So you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So
Again, how do we kind of, let's say we are able to find the owner and in the path you explained, but opening up a seller finance conversation with the owners who don't understand other than selling it traditionally, how do we kind of
why,
educate?
yeah, why are you selling? That's what I said. Do you want that? Do you like that passive income? And then have you ever done an amortization schedule before?
Mhm. I'm not.
Have you ever looked at one?
Yes, I looked at. Yes.
Okay. You can present a seller how much and show them how much more money they can make becoming the bank. I had a seller show them that they wanted a 3-year term, but because I was paying top dollar, I didn't feel comfortable with a 3-year term. I was paying top ARV, almost 100%. For me to do it, I had my minimum is 5 years. If I'm paying less, if I'm going, if they want less than 5 years, then I want some equity in that deal. I'm not going to pay top dollar. And I show them like, hey, if you're paying it with a realtor, like if you're trying to sell their home and a retail buyer is going back and forth and negotiating, what are you going to end up with? They're probably going to end up with $30,000 less. I'm willing to give them that $30,000 as long as they're willing to give me terms over 5 years, because then it's time, value, and money. So I'll do an amortization schedule. I had a seller one time where they were doing 3 years. I provided an amortization schedule. I went through the numbers, showed them, like in this scenario, how much more money they're making an extra. Well, this one I did show them 10 years instead of 5 years. They're making an extra $149,000 becoming the bank. Instead of the 3 years, they said, all right, we'll do the 10 years. And then they wanted to put a prepayment penalty. Then at that point, they wanted to put a prepayment penalty because they didn't want to get paid off. Because I showed them an amortization schedule, because you're diversifying instead of having all your market. And I always say, this is what most of the other people do. And when I talk to sellers that are tired landlords, I always say, I'm assuming that I'm assuming because you've owned it for so long that you're open to doing it on terms because you like that passive income, because I know that's what everybody else does. So in their mind, oh wow, if everybody else is doing that, why am I not doing that? So it's a
Right.
little psychological, a little aspect of it. So if other people are doing it, then they're going to think they should be doing it too. Think of like when you're a kid, the ice cream truck goes by. They always want to run to the front of the line, or at the airport. They're all trying to get to the front of the plane in the line, but we're all going the same place. It's that human psychologically. If everybody else is doing it, why am I not doing it? So I hate that. So, well, I'm assuming you're open to doing seller financing like everybody else does, so you don't get hit with the capital gains. Oh, so I kind of plant it in the head. I'm assuming you're okay with that. I don't ask them. I'm assuming you're okay to that, because if they think everybody else is doing it, oh, why? What am I missing out? I must not be getting something, that type of thing.
Understood. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Cool. Great questions.
I'm going to hop in here real quick. Make sure, guys, that if you are wanting to learn more, you guys are at a level where you're ready to go to the next level. If you're looking to take that next step, so hop on a call, see if Mark's mentorship is right for you. It is one of the best seller financing mentorships out there in the best communities, and it's just starting. You'll be one of the founding members, basically, and it's here to the moon from now. There's not just sub two, right? You have every different type of seller financing possibilities. You need to open up your arsenal. So if you're just looking at one way to do a seller financing deal, well, a certain property might be better off on another one. So Mark helps you understand which properties benefit most from each seller financing from a seller financing strategy. So I recommend hopping on a call, see if the program's a good fit for you. It's a free call, no sales call on this first one, and it's just to see if it's a good fit for you. We want to make sure you qualify for the program as well. So I'm dropping it in the chat.
I like what
Bam.
Randy said. Can
What
I
are you
do it on
laughing at, Mark?
terms? I love that, Randy. That was good.
Hop on a call. We'll get to it. We'll
No
talk to you
doubt.
about
I'll schedule a call for sure. Thanks, guys.
What market
it.
are you
Awesome.
in,
Thanks,
Randy?
Randy.
I'm in Kansas City, man. It's hot time to be here right now because the World Cup is coming, and so yeah, and it's a possibility that the Chiefs might be moving in certain areas. So it's a hot time right now in Kansas City, especially with the Chiefs and everything else going on. So
Kansas is a great market, especially
yep,
the small mini multifamilies out there too. But
yep.
I like Kansas City market a lot. And Scott, one of the things in your market, what I would probably look at in Arizona and those type of markets like here in South Florida, because the numbers aren't making sense, then that would be more of what's called a sandwich lease option strategy. So you can cash flow a little bit there on that. So that's a different type of strategy. in those type of markets. But Kansas City, Ohio, that's really where the good, because you can get the depreciation, the tax advantages. When you do a sandwich lease option, you really don't get the tax advantages, but you still can make money off of those deals. So pleasure meeting you, Randy.
Likewise, sir. Thank you.
Awesome. See you on the call, Randy. All right.
Yes, sir.
Zach. Are you on here, Zach? Do you want to hop on here and ask your question? That way you can have some dialogue, or do you want me to read it? Just unmute your mic and you start talking. You don't have to turn your camera on.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep, sure can.
Perfect. I have several rental properties, mostly multifamily buy and hold. I also kind of reach out to the retired landlords, and I've acquired one installment sale through a gentleman who, as you mentioned, didn't want to pay a bunch of capital gains. I think he had roughly 10 units he was trying to sell off. In that particular case, he really wanted to keep the deed in his name. That's the biggest thing that I find the challenge of, you can explain the liability of having the deed in the seller's name, and then, you're renting it and something happens. But most people seem to want to have control of that. And that's fine. But, as you mentioned, it kind of inhibits depreciation and things like that. So just out of curiosity, is it more the really desperate people that are looking to transfer the deed out of their name? And realistically, to not have a loan called, there should be no mortgage on the property. So I guess if someone, I guess two parts to it. One is, how do you convince someone to put the deed in your name? And two, if there is a mortgage, can you set up a side escrow account to pay that, so that way it pays the regular escrow on time? Let me know if that makes sense.
It does. There's a lot of ways to answer that. There's so many different ways. I like to put my properties into a trust. So that's one way of doing it. The other way, like you're talking about the deed and they want the depreciation, I've done it where I tell the seller, no offense, but I don't want to have to chase you down the road, whatever the end of the term is, 5-7 years. So I make them sign the deed and I have it sit in escrow with the closing agent. I've done that before as well. But when I sell it on that type of strategy, I want them to look for me. But typically what I like to do is put it into a trust. And then you can also create an LLC and make it look like a mortgage company. And then have the sellers create and have that seller's equity as a mortgage in a sense. Like go to create like a Wyoming LLC. They're really cheap, couple $100, and it's anonymity. So then the lender is just going to think it's another second mortgage against a property instead of the seller's mortgage. So there's a lot of different ways of going about that, but there's easy ways around that.
Thank you.
Did I help at all? Did those couple ideas?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the concepts, but it's just kind of putting it into practice. So thank you.
Yeah, I get it. Once you've done a few of them, it's repetition, but you totally want to understand. And you want to make sure it's set up correctly so it doesn't trigger the due on sales. It doesn't do a lot of other stuff, but it's really easy stuff to do. For me, at least it is. Once you've done it a couple of times, it's pretty easy, but I totally get it. So, but if you want to jump on a call, I'll be more than happy to chat with you sometime. So cool.
Awesome. All right, guys. Again, if you want to learn more about Mark's mentorship program, just schedule a call. It's a free call, no hassle to it. We just want to see if it's a good fit for you. We want to make sure that you're a good fit for the program. We don't pick just everybody to join the program. So just schedule a call, and you'll hop on a call with Reese. He'll talk to you, see where you're at in your journey, and see where we can help you. And we'll go from there. You'll schedule a call with me after that. Mark, you have anything else to say?
Yeah, it was great questions. A lot of knowledgeable people in here, and these are typically the type of people I work with that already have some real estate experience. I got some deals, just things that are taking it to that next level. It's kind of like where I was. I just added another strategies to my tool belt type of thing to be able to do some more real estate deals. Cool. I really appreciate it, everybody. Thanks you guys for coming. Scott, good catching up. Good seeing you again. Randy, we'll talk to you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Already scheduled.
All
Cool.
right. Thanks, guys.
All right,
We'll
guys.
talk to you all later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.